I don't know why I should say we. I shouldn't take this on. But basically, what Steiner said, or what was discovered, was that there is an etheric body inside the body
Right.
that animates it.
Right.
And that there is an etheric body which animates the earth.
Yes.
Are they distinct but
Yes.
connected?
Yeah, they're connected, but they are distinct.
Okay,
Right.
just wanted to make sure.
That's right.
And so in the context of what you just said about Wilhelm Reich, where does Wilhelm Reich's discovery with orgone energy connect with these two pieces?
Well, in the first place, let me emphasize that Dr. Reich never read Dr. Steiner. That is in his writings, that he never read Dr. Steiner, ever. But he just said that the anthroposophists, the people who followed Steiner, were the most human people that he had come across, but he had never read Steiner. So there is no connection, actually, direct connection between Steiner and Reich, not at all, except other than the fact that they're both Austrians.
Okay.
But that
something must have been really happening in Austria for all this to come out of there.
That's quite a place, Austria.
Have you been?
Yeah. Yes, I wish I could go again.
Well, maybe you will. Maybe I'll require you deliver a rainfall there.
Right. But that is how the two of them, they were more or less contemporaries. They never met, and they were both Austrians at the same time. So it's very strange. But those are the things that are guided from the spiritual world. In other words, it was not required that Dr. Steiner meet Dr. Reich, and vice versa, that they did not meet. There was a reason for that, I'm sure.
Is it so that possibly there wasn't a competition or any type
No,
of...
I don't think it had anything to do with that. That they wanted two separate knowledge streams to come into...
And coexist.
That's right.
Gotcha.
And, and I came along and put the two of them together.
All right, so you're a born synthesizer, I take it.
Yeah, that's right.
What motivated you to come into weather engineering?
Well,
how did you even get into this?
I felt that at the time that Dr. Reich had been on the Earth, I didn't really understand anything about his work. I was then connected with Dr. Ruth B. Drown in Los Angeles here, and I had heard about Dr. Reich, but I had not really gone into him at all. But I became very familiar with Robert A. McCullough, who
his
was
assistant,
right? He was an assistant to Reich for 2.5 years in Maine and also down in Tucson during the weather experiments down there in the early 50s. And Bob made me aware of the close correlation that there was between Steiner and Reich. And of course, I did the same thing for him. I plowed him into Steiner, where he stayed for the rest of his life. And that was how I got onto this, that what was in Wachsmuth's book about the ethers in the life of the Earth dovetailed with what was in Reich. And I came to the conclusion that this man had performed a monumental service by finding out, first of all, how the life force functioned in human life and how to get a hold of it, namely with a cloudbuster. That was how it happened.
Interesting.
And then, of course, it was all elaboration from there on.
Elaboration and a lot of work.
That's right.
And a lot of work.
Yeah, thousands of experiments.
Let's talk one more second about the ether. I don't want to leave the ether alone because many times in the world people have made jokes about the ether. Mm-hmm. It's usually referred to as a kind of joking thing, like somebody could say to somebody, oh, she's in the ethers.
Yeah.
Or that project's in the ethers. In other words, it's in a dwelling that doesn't exist. It's in the unmanifest state. Mm-hmm. In this particular case, this is a concrete but invisible
correct
membrane or substance of something.
Right. That's right.
And it's so specific. Talk about the function of the ether with regard to weather engineering, so then we can talk about the weather engineering.
Well, the relationship between the vital force and the physical world is brought about in terms of the weather by putting a metal pipe into water and waving the opposite end in the atmosphere so that you can entrain.
What does that word mean?
Entrain mean you
entrap?
Yes.
Contain?
It entrain it. I don't know how to explain it really. It's just a word that I use quite commonly. Entrain, you would, in other words, the energy is moving more or less randomly, and when you put that pipe in there into the atmosphere, you entrain the energy. The energy goes down the pipe.
You direct it?
That's right.
Okay.
You direct it.
All right.
And you direct it. And you go from there to testing out Dr. Wachsmuth's statements about how the ether flows. It flows from north to south in the wintertime in the northern hemisphere, and from south to north in the northern hemisphere in the summertime. It reverses in between the seasons. And most of the central riddles of meteorology are contained in that reversal. That this is why climate changes and so forth.
Wait a minute.
Very difficult.
This is why climate changes happen?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Well, when the ether starts moving, we'll say in the springtime, from south to north, this is when you start to get the weather coming up from the south into the southern states. This is when you get the hurricanes in the eastern Atlantic. So that's where they come. When the etheric flow from the south superimposes with the flow from the east. They superimpose.
So then, given this knowledge, are hurricanes preventable? I know that's a tough question.
Yes, it is. I wouldn't say that they were preventable with existing knowledge. Let me say that.
With the capital N, capital K, new knowledge, sir,
yeah, right.
Are hurricanes preventable,
yes,
given
I would
your
say
frame
so.
of reference
Right.
and experience?
You must remember that people who are into this have absolutely no resources, and the government and the necessary corporate people and so forth don't want anything to do with this. There's just no funding at all available to do this kind of work.
Describe what this kind of work is.
This kind of work would be, say, to take a fast ship, say a destroyer or a cruiser, out into the eastern Atlantic and pick off the hurricanes as they formed, because you can do that. And I've done that myself, in the Pacific. But that's the way you protect Florida, is to deactivate the hurricanes before they move across the Atlantic.
So part of your weather engineering work has to do with prevention.
Yeah.
Another part has to do with the formation of rainfall in areas that are needing it.
Yeah.
And I understand that a sideline, or while you were busy forming weather or creating rain, that you noticed that you could clear smog. Can you talk about that? Because there are so many parts of the world right now that are in terrible, almost unbreathable conditions. Just in the United States alone, the respiratory industry is skyrocketing. There's so much respiratory disease.
Yeah.
Talk about the...
Well, I think they'd rather have the disease than have it eliminated by methods like mine, because my methods work, and that eliminates, a big business that's being built up.
Let's talk about the actual clearing of the smog. I think people would definitely want to hear that.
Well,
how does it work?
We worked 3 years on that here in Los Angeles in 1987, 88, 89, and 90. And we brought smog down in 1990 in a full dress operation, brought it down by 24% over the full 6 months. And nobody wanted to talk to us.
Talk about how you measured what you did.
Well, I used their measurements. We didn't measure it.
Who was the there?
There is the South Coast
Air Quality
Management District, SQAMD.
Okay. And so what happens? They have a particular record, a way of recording how much smog is in the air.
Exactly.
That's available to the public?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, they get $101 million a year. They should be able to provide you with statistics. They publish the statistics in the newspaper.
Okay.
Every day.
So what happens? You set up what kind of an instrument to do this?
We set up 14 stations in Southern California.
Are they is it technology? What is it? Is it a tube?
No,
what
it's like the vortex generators. Pairs of cones that are mounted together on arms, and they rotate, and that's what clears the smog.
How long do they have to be there to clear the smog?
They run continuously throughout the whole season.
Is that something that could be put in place, for example, in, let's say, San Bernardino or Los Angeles or
Greece? Sure, it can be put in place anywhere.
And